All right, hello everyone, this is Mr. Crozier, and I wanted to give you some help with practice test number 1. Anytime you have questions, please email. I can make videos like this explaining the math. So here we go. People emailed in questions. Somebody asked about question number 4. Well, we have to find the perimeter, and the perimeter I would just add these sides up, and this side and this side and this side. And why don't I call this side, this will be side A, because it's across from A, and this side will be side C, because it's across from side C. And now I just have to figure them out. And we're going to do that with some trigonometry. I can't use Pythagorean theorem because I have 2 missing sides. But I can choose to call this theta. You could have picked this one, but I'm going to call this one theta because I have this angle. And then this side right here is the adjacent side, and this is the this is the opposite side, and this is the hypotenuse. And now that I have that, I can write the trig function. And the trig function I'm going to write first is the cosine of 35 degrees is equal to the adjacent value over the hypotenuse. If you solve this equation, whoops, I needed to be an A right there. The adjacent over the hypotenuse, if you do that equation, you will figure out what the hypotenuse is. And then if you want to figure out this tangent value, you could say the tangent of 35 is the opposite over the adjacent. If you solve that, you'll figure out the opposite value. Again, I was a little, I got my letters mixed up just because there's different ways to do this, but that's why I would write down the words here so you make sure you don't mix them up. All right, someone asked me about problem 6. How do you convert this from degrees to radians? Well, you put in this conversion factor. And the conversion factor is that 180 degrees is pi radians. And I really suggest you write the word radian right there. So now we just do the math because we're going to do hundredths. So it's 123 times pi divided by 180 is 2.14 radians. Doesn't have to be an exact answer. We're not looking for exact answers on here. We're rounding them. So it's okay to divide this out here. All right, I had some more questions. Somebody asked about this story problem here. A circular pizza has a diameter of 16 inches. So there's my pizza, there's that. And the pizza is divided up into pieces that are 40 degrees. So maybe the piece looks like that. That's a piece of pizza. What's the area of this? Well, we know area equals pi times r squared. So we're going to use that formula to figure it out. So I just put in pi, multiply it by r squared, and that would be 8 squared. And then those are in inches. And then I'm going to multiply it by I don't want the whole area. I want a fraction of the area. And the fraction I want is 40 degrees out of 360. And if you do that math, you'll get the answer. And the answer will be in inches squared, square inches, because we're talking about area. But just remember, start with this formula and then multiply it by this fraction right here. How much of the pizza do you want? We want 40 out of this. All right, number 12 you can skip. This problem was not supposed to be on there. This is a problem we'll do later on in the year. I had a question on number 13. People asked, how do we do our trig functions with this? Well, we have 4 and 7, and we're given theta is here, so this is theta. Well, this is, always write this down. This is the opposite, hypotenuse, and adjacent. And if we do that, it's real easy to figure out tangent, right? Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so it's 7/4, and cotangent is just as easy. The other ones involve this hypotenuse, so we have to figure out the hypotenuse. Well, how do we figure it out without it? Well, thankfully, we can use the quadratic formula. If you use the quadratic formula here, you can figure out what C is. I'll go ahead and do that on here real quick. What is that? 4 squared. 4 squared plus 7 squared is root 65. So this is root 65. So the sine value is the opposite 7 over root 65. If I flip this over, I have root 65 over 7, which is that value. However, that's not acceptable because of the irrational number down there. So let's multiply by root 65. 7 root 65 over 65. You can do the same kind of logic with cosine. But it's kind of nice if you write this down first, because then you can flip it over real easy here and you don't have to rationalize that. So if you write it down first, you can go quickly from there to there and not have to mess with this step in there. All right, I had a question on number 16. For problem 16, how do you graph this? Well, you graph this point, and the problem is tangent's negative. Remember, let's see here. All students take calculus. Tangent's negative in these two quadrants because it's positive in these two. So which one is this in? Well, it's in quadrant 4, so it's down here. So my triangle is opposite -8, adjacent 5. So let me draw this triangle 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and -8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, -8. And that point right there will build me the correct triangle that I need. And that triangle, theta, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse, -8 over 15. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, -8 over 15. And Pythagorean theorem, that's 17. Use those numbers to find your trig values. All right, on the last page, how do you do cotangent? Well, we don't have a cotangent button, so we do 1 over tangent of 3 pi over 4. Now that's obviously in radians, so we're going to switch our calculator to radians. Now it's in radians, and I'm going to do 1 divided by tangent of 3 pi divided by 4. And we're going to get -1. Now you could switch this to degrees and then use it as degrees, but might as well get in the habit of making radians and using radians. All right, what's the reference angle? Let's do this one up here. Where is secant positive and cosine negative? Well, that's all about all students take calculus. All right, where's cosine negative? That's the easy one. Well, cosine's positive in these two, so cosine's negative in these sections here. But what does this mean? We don't have a saying for this, but we do know that secant is related to cosine. So we just replace it, because if we take the reciprocal, it's going to be the same sign. All right, so this is saying when's cosine positive and when's cosine negative? There is none. There is no place. There is no quadrant where that happens. All right, 2 more problems here. 13 pi over 6. Well, what's the reference angle? Let's go ahead and draw 13 pi over 6. Well, isn't that 2 and 1/6? 13/6 is 2 and 1/6. So I'd go around the circle, then I'd go to pi over 6. That's my angle. I went around the circle and back to there. Reference means what is this angle? From here to here. Just like a plain old geometry problem. Well, that's just pi over 6. So it's just the small angle. All right, last one. I'm not going to solve it, but I will give you the picture here. A plane is flying at an altitude of 5,000 feet. So here's my plane, and it's flying, and it's 5,000 feet high, and it's looking at this airport over here. Here's the airport, and what it tells me is the angle of depression is 10 degrees. So that means the plane's looking down to the airport at 10 degrees. All right, and it asks, how far is it? So we need to find this. Well, let's name our sides. Well, this is theta, and this is the opposite, and this is the hypotenuse, and this is the adjacent. So now what we have here is a situation where we know an adjacent, and we want to find a hypotenuse, so that's cosine. But what's this angle? Well, this is a right angle, and if this is 10, then that's 80. So it's cosine of 80, not 10. Opposite or adjacent over hypotenuse will give you the answer. Be careful. This is in feet, so this is going to give an answer. It's going to say x is equal to something feet, but you're going to have to change the feet and use the conversion factor that 1 mile is 5,280 feet to get the number of miles. All right, if you have more questions, please email, and I'll be happy to help.